Hi, Katie. Welcome to the Empowered Nutrition Podcast. So happy to have you.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Same. I can't wait to chat with you. And I think this topic is probably one of the top five, maybe top three most important topics we can talk about. I think especially it's interesting the way women are impacted by it. And I think there is a growing maybe movement around like sober curiosity, or at least I hope so. Or is that just me getting older that it feels like people are
Yeah, I
feeling
know.
that way?
I
But
think that sometimes too, I'm like, is it getting more popular? Are we just getting older and
yeah,
becoming parents and outgrowing, binge?
right. Although I think young people drink a lot less than they used to as well.
Yeah, totally. I know. I've posted about that before as well, and it's certainly a trend that more young people are stepping away from alcohol or just not as interested as I know our generation was, or
Yeah,
my group of friends.
yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, there's a lot of different niche areas you can focus on. How did you end up on sober curiosity and this topic of alcohol?
Yeah, it really evolved from my own path. I had gone to my undergrad for psychology, so I was always really interested in interpersonal well-being, mental health, how we navigate our relationship dynamics. All of that was very interesting to me early on in the field of health for sure. But in the background, I was a pretty big binge drinker, just starting drinking at a young age. I grew up on Martha's Vineyard, where there's a lot of binge
Oh,
drinking.
yeah. And I grew up near Napa Valley, so
Yeah, you know how it is. Like
I feel
you're around
you.
people constantly on
It's
vacation.
normalized. Yeah.
Yeah, so you are around a lot of heavy drinking. There's a lot of boredom drinking in the winter. And I also worked in hospitality, like starting at a young age because I was in a tourist destination growing up. So I worked in the hospitality industry all the way through college, all the way through grad school when I was getting my master's in nutrition and functional medicine and root cause healing. So I'm, binge
Yeah.
drinking my way through, on one hand,
Yeah.
like through my education. And then on the other hand, I was learning all about health and wellness. And I think in the back of my mind, I kind of had this sort of subconscious belief system like, oh, I'll get it together when I like graduate from school and I want to get serious about my career. So it was sort of almost like school was this procrastination method and binge drinking was so normalized, and it was a way for me to escape a lack of deeper meaning and purpose in my life for sure. I always kind of had this feeling like I have more to offer and I didn't
Mm.
quite know what it was. And so there were a lot of confounding, you know, factors, traumatic experiences in childhood, like family
Yeah.
dynamics that all contributed to my drinking. But essentially, it all came to a head in 2020 when I had graduated from my master's program. So I was starting to say, like, okay, got to figure out what I'm going to do here. But I had a lot of imposter syndrome around my drinking and the way that it conflicted with everything I was learning about health and wellness, my own imposter syndrome around starting my own business, but not being the healthiest version of myself. And so in 2020, the drinking kind of picked up as it did for a lot of people just at first. And I decided I'm going to do like a health coaching certification to really like cap off my education, start my own business. And during that time, I took a trial run away from alcohol, and I was like, I just really want to throw myself into this, get the most out of it, and just start my business, have the confidence to do so. And so I took a break from drinking in July of 2020, and I just never went back because I realized how profoundly my life was impacted in a
Wow.
beneficial way when I stopped. And that
Yeah.
was really the start of my niche accidentally, because I've realized how holistic approaches to sober curiosity was really the way to shift my relationship with alcohol. So I used
Yeah.
my whole background educationally, and yeah, it just kind of blossomed from that.
That's really incredible. I took a break for a year couple years ago, and it was inspired by a woman who has, I think it's called This Dirty Mind. Her name's
Oh,
Anne.
This Naked Mind by
This
Nate.
Naked Mind. That's right. This Naked Mind.
Yeah.
She's incredible. And
Oh,
she has
Anne
like,
and Grace.
yeah, that's right. Thank you. And it's wise of you to continue, because I did feel like it really positively impacted my life, but I was following her, what she says, and then going on to read more research, I did have a better appreciation of like the sort of addictive qualities of alcohol.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I did let myself to kind of work my way back to drink. My plan was to just only drink a little bit, and then, it's hard to keep it like that. I've had a very stressful, difficult year so far with a lot of things, and it's back to like, I'll never binge drink, but it's back to like every night I want to have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I wish I could be back to where, I was before. But it's like that. It's very insidious and sneaky, the way it kind of creeps and creeps. If you're maybe the type of person that has that sort of
tendency.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard.
I feel like a lot of people feel like you feel. And for starters, I just want to say, like, congrats on a year, because that's so amazing. And I think that's exactly what you highlighted there, is this changing of your awareness around it. Whereas, like, once you take an extended break like that, that's why I love Sober Curiosity, because it's just like there's no definitive commitment. Of course, if somebody's really struggling with physical dependency, like, I would recommend, full abstinence and really working towards not drinking, but we're kind of in this gray area and we choose to explore our relationship to alcohol prior to physical dependency. It's really this like proactive measure, and you can't help but just have a changed perspective on alcohol when you take that much time off. There's no more like going back to mindless drinking, at least in a way that like you can enjoy. It's like you wake up, you can't like undo the awareness. And I think a lot of people can relate to what you said about it just creeping back in, and particularly stress. I find we are so conditioned to build lives that are so overwhelming, between like what we're expected to do as moms, in our career, in our day-to-day, the news, and everything that's constantly bombarding us on a daily basis. It's so overwhelming if you just exist in normalized patterns of living, that I see how and then we have drinking alcohol as this normalized coping mechanism. Everyone's doing it. And it's like, for me, once I stepped away from it, I just realized, like, no shit, everyone's drinking this way when these are the lives we're conditioned to create. And it was just this really big, like, spiritual awakening process for me, of recognizing, if I want to be happy in my life, and I'm going to have to start creating my own norms of what I want my life to look and feel like, because subscribing to what everyone else is doing is leaving me wanting to check out every dang day.
It's like the societal norm that's developed, that is funded in large part by the alcohol industry, is that moms need to drink or should drink or benefit from drinking. It helps them get through. That's really a lie that I think a lot of women have been led to believe. And it really is that you're kind of creating your own. You're being counterculture if you just decide, actually, that's not helpful for me, and it's not something that benefits me.
Isn't it wild too how, mommy wine culture does have that narrative of like, oh, like, motherhood is so stressful, let me drink wine, I earned this. Like, it's framed as self-care, when in reality it's exacerbating your anxiety, lowering your stress resilience, and pumping you full of cortisol. And it's like, it's not about the mom choosing to drink wine at all, like, or shaming moms. It's about the symptoms that we have no support as moms, really. We have really unrealistic expectations of like what moms and motherhood, I guess I should say, should look like. And then we have this like marketed to us at every turn. It's completely normalized. You're like the weird one if you don't. And it's just crazy how like brainwashing and like marketing works, to the point where you're literally drinking a neurotoxin for stress. Makes your job harder, and you're sold it as making your job easier. So it's just wild.
Yeah, it's bad. And another thing I really like that you said is, I think the phrase I heard from you at one point was gray area drinkers, because that's another, I think, lie that we have in our culture, that it's kind of like, if you're an alcoholic, that's definitely bad. And if you're not an alcoholic, you're good to go. It's like there's kind of no in between. And like, tell me more about what you mean when you say like a gray area drinker.
Yeah, so when I say gray area drinking, what I mean is, and I think alcoholism in large part I define as somebody who's like physically dependent, because it's just like an easy marker to be like, okay, this is when it's escalated to like physical dependency. But lots of people may consider themselves an alcoholic before they get there, and some people don't consider themselves an alcoholic who are definitely there, like functioning alcoholics. So
Right.
there's this element that's like, it is a bit subjective, but there are some things I think are definitive, like physical dependency, waking up and having to drink. And I think that's where we've always defined as someone who's an alcoholic. Yet um, I think problematic drinking exists long before that develops. Things that we write off as normal byproducts of drinking, anxiety, hangovers, writing the whole next day off because you don't feel good, or even feeling insecure or low self-confidence. A lot of that is a byproduct of regular drinking that wouldn't be
Yeah.
there if we weren't um, causing ourselves, inner turmoil and anxiety, or not living up to things we know we want to do because of alcohol, which is also affecting our confidence. And
Hmm.
so it's just this idea that we can, we don't just end up as an alcoholic. There's this
Right.
idea that genetics plays a role. And I think the more we learn about epigenetics, the more we learn that there's a confluence of factors that really manifest in alcoholism. And yes, genetics plays a role, but there's really no alcoholism gene. Like, there are genes that could contribute to like a higher likelihood of becoming addicted, maybe impulse control, or we're noticing now a lot of neurodivergent folks, like there's a bigger link to alcoholism, which or self-medicating, which makes sense when you don't fit into like the mainstream, whatever that is, or you operate a little differently. Like, it makes sense that you would. I feel that way with my sensitivity sometimes. Like, I don't fit in, or I'm more easily overstimulated. And so it's just that idea that we can work up to alcoholism, not intending to, based on a variety of factors, trauma, and this idea of genetics as well. As like, yeah, maybe your parents were alcoholics, but if you saw that behavior, maybe it's not necessarily genetics completely, but also what you saw, the style of drinking you saw. And so I'm not saying there's no genetic correlation, but
Right.
certainly like many more. And
Yeah.
just recognizing that our relationship and what's normalized in our society around alcohol consumption can be really unhealthy for a lot of people, or it can really be holding a lot of people back. And so just starting to notice, like, am I having problematic effects from my drinking? Am I feeling anxiety the next day? Like, these are all part of gray area drinking, or exploring
Yeah.
the negative consequences a little earlier.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's kind of like you're living maybe a less full life, and it's affecting you. And I also had seen you said some that one thing I liked in your bio is it said you touched on like this is physical, emotional, and spiritual. It might be that you feel fine and you're not having physical effects currently. Um, and so if you hear an argument of like, this is a carcinogen, this doesn't help your heart health, this is a neurotoxin, it might not really, if you're only thinking about the physical effects, you might think, oh, well, I don't feel like I have any physical effects. That might not be powerful enough to motivate you. But what you're touching on is maybe something that starts a little bit earlier around like, how present are you at night with your children if you are drinking? What about your goals and your dreams? Like, how are you in your marriage? How are you, with your spiritual life? And is alcohol impairing any of those things? And that's a very like early on thing that somebody may never advance to alcoholism. And I would say most women don't, but that's the gray area thing. They're still impacted by it.
Yeah, and I love what you said about like the fullness of your life? And what do you envision as your ideal life? And how close are you to that? And what role do you think alcohol could be playing in creating any barriers to that? And so I certainly think too that just this applied awareness around your relationship to alcohol, even if it's not this huge detrimental, like it's ruining your life, there's so much insight we can gain when we start to look at our relationship with alcohol. Because have you tried socializing without it? What comes up for you? Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel like you need a drink? Do you connect with the people that you're spending time with without alcohol? How do you feel at the end of every day without a drink? If you feel like very antsy at the end of every day, what is that saying about our stress levels? And what is that saying about the day to day, like, pace of living we've created? So it's not always just about like, oh, like I think it's fine. It's like there's some deeper levels of self-awareness we can get around ourselves and like the lives we've created when we start to pay attention to when we go reaching for a drink. A lot of times there's a reason, and it can be enlightening to start to pay attention to what those are. Because even the idea that like socializing without alcohol, once you get comfortable doing it, it's so awesome. Like to be able to be present and connected and comfortable in your own skin, like it's such a superpower that I think so many of us never even get the opportunity to access that deep presence and connection with others without alcohol, just because it's the go-to in every social situation. So even that alone, like, doesn't have to be a problem, but think of the deepened sense of connection you can get with the people around you if you got comfortable not drinking here and there socially.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting that you kind of brought up that maybe, like, so if you, maybe the classic like stereotype around alcohol is that it's like it's more of like a fun thing, and like it's going to be an extroverted kind of like fun party type personality that's going to be more attracted to alcohol. But I think what you're kind of suggesting is that maybe it's someone who is more introverted and a little bit less like stimulated positively by new social settings, and someone who maybe is more sensitive, almost like as a way of sort of coping, which it doesn't mean that person's feelings aren't valid. But what do you do to help people if like you kind of identify that that it's more of like that they're trying to cope with their feelings that they're having that are difficult feelings?
Yeah, I think it's really two-sided. But first I'll say too, like I think that tons of people, like extroverted and introverted, really heavily rely on alcohol socially, and it's become a crutch for like the majority of us who socialize, even people who think they have a really healthy relationship with alcohol. I think the majority of people be like, "Oh, you want me to go to
Yeah.
a party and like not drink?" Um,
Right.
they would feel uncomfortable with that. And all I'm saying is that can be like an opportunity to be like, oh, like, am I comfortable in my own skin socially without it? And it's like this kind of like moving away from it necessarily being a problem, whether you're extroverted or introverted, but simply observing like when we need it and want it as like an opportunity for exploration. But in terms of helping people who do feel like, okay, I kind of feel like this is a crutch or I'm using this as a coping mechanism, I use it as an opportunity to explore both like the context and the circumstance, and also like as an empowering opportunity to like explore yourself without it. So on one hand, it's like, well, when do you notice you're reaching for it? Like, what's the context and environment? If it's in a social environment, um, do you like these people? Do you enjoy their company? Like, do you feel like
Sure.
you need to drink? Like, there's a lot of things we can like explore around, like, what is it that makes you feel uncomfortable socially? Because I think a lot of times too, I realized when I stopped drinking, I don't even really enjoy like huge overstimulating parties. Like, I would much rather
Yeah.
do like a small intimate like gathering with girlfriends, or like go out to dinner or something along those lines. And maybe I was drinking to fit into environments I didn't really love to begin with, that I thought I
Hmm.
was supposed to enjoy.
Yeah.
But I also teach, like, help guide people in empowering themselves to be like, listen, no one really cares as much as you think about what you're drinking, what you're doing. Like, this is an opportunity to flex that muscle. Like, social skills are a skill set for a reason. And if we don't, flex that muscle without alcohol, then we're never going to feel comfortable socializing without it or coping without it. And we have to kind of be gracious with ourselves as we learn to navigate like healthier coping mechanisms and to navigate existing without that crutch. And it takes a lot of self-compassion and grace, and also like looking at the root causes in our life that are, which is what scares most people about removing alcohol is like, what if I, like, what about my social life? What if I lose my personality? What about my husband? Is he going to be supportive of me?
Oh, yeah. It can
Like,
be a thing with couples.
oh yeah, so many things that it's like more about what we have to look at when we take it out. That's daunting a lot of times.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. I mean, one thing that I keep thinking about with what you're saying is I'm curious more about what you think in terms of, so like the classic, like Alcoholics Anonymous, that is just going cold turkey and stopping.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about sober curiosity. I'm hearing more that maybe it starts more with like exploring how we feel and our reasons and underlying things, and then not really holding ourselves to that expectation that we may completely stop drinking, and hoping that just by thinking about it more, we'll just naturally drink less or stop. And is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, so definitely love, AA and the
Yeah,
community and the approach, I think is really beneficial for people that are in those later stages of alcoholism or physical dependency and really needing that like more rigidity commitment to sobriety. And what sober curiosity I feel is just expanding the doorway for more people to explore their relationship to alcohol earlier on. And to be quite honest, most people that come my way in terms of clients are at a point where they feel like, okay, drinking isn't the best for me, but I just don't feel like I'm at a point where AA is like necessary. Maybe
oh
they're
yeah,
starting to feel, and I would certainly be I'm always honest with my clients too when we start working together. And I say, if you're experiencing physical dependency, like you need to deal with that prior to like any work that we could do together. But the majority of people are just starting to have problems, anxiety. They're like, I know this isn't like, I don't want to have a life where I like drink every day, or I'm feeling like it's taking up a little more mental bandwidth in my life than I want it to.
sure.
And so typically they want to at least take a break during the duration of our time together and like evaluate how they feel moving beyond. And I find, we have like bumps in the road and slips sometimes, and we navigate those together and explore like, is it doing, and it's just nice to have that sounding board when you're actively like going through like regressions and
Yeah,
recommitting to not drinking, because you remind yourself with someone there, like, is it doing what you thought what you want it to be doing? Uh,
right.
and so we look at, the areas of their life that are making them want to drink, the context with which they do, and we build support around that. And then we also look at building healthy habits, building strong physical health, building like spiritual practices and spiritual hygiene and mental health and boundaries and shadow work and energetic leaks and just all of the things that are preventing them from being in alignment with themselves, that's causing them to want to self-medicate or check out. And just
Yeah,
my mentality with it is like creating a life you're so passionate about that like it makes alcohol irrelevant. It's less focus on, okay, don't drink, don't drink, don't drink. It's like, all right, what's
right.
going on here?
What if
Let's
the drinking is the response to like the life, not having a life that you're really excited about? And so,
exactly
yeah, it's a more additive approach. Like with nutrition is,
crowding out.
good thing to do is crowding out. Yeah, exactly. Bringing in
Like,
positive things and
yeah.
mhm.
And I use like, we look at the uh, wheel of life and sort of like all of the elements of their life and what role is alcohol playing, how is it bettering those. And it's really just this facilitated process of awareness development and walking them through ups and downs. Or if they are more like actively committed to just like eliminating alcohol, then we kind of get to go to the next part. Like once you get past alcohol elimination, it's so cool. I work with them on like career development or creativity and like the next layers of evolution. And that's so fun too. Like once alcohol's out of the way, there's so much unfolding that you
Absolutely.
to walk clients through. And that's really exciting for me too. I love that part.
Absolutely. Tell me more how it works from their end. So they find you, do they join a group or do they work with you one-on-one, or can it be either way?
Yeah, so I do one-on-one work with clients where I've started my business on Instagram. And so I usually have no more than like 5 to 10 one-on-one clients at any given time. And I work with them for a 6 month period where they have access to like Voxer support with me and um, my course and regular sessions throughout those 6 months. And I really love people committing to that duration of time because I find, you really have to commit to a pretty good period of time to truly dig into your relationship to alcohol, your relationship without
Hmm.
alcohol, trying to walk through the process of developing mindfulness around it through different seasons of life. So that's sort of the minimum. And then I have clients that I continue to work with beyond the 6 months with session bundles that I
Love it.
give exclusively to clients I've already worked with. So they have continued support if they need, and just really cool to go through the whole process with clients. I love it. I have, women who started with me when I first began, and they are like now opening their own wellness studio, and just
What?
going through the expansion without alcohol is so fun. So that's one-on-one. And then I do monthly donation-based virtual circles for sober curious and sober women that a lot of women come every month. And then there's new women that come drop in. And I do, workshopping and breath work and meditation. I did my certification in that a couple years ago as well. And then right now I'm in my yurt. So I started doing monthly sober curious sister circles in my community where the virtual circles are actually a byproduct of the in-person circles because so many people saw like the yurt circles online and
Yeah, cool.
you want to come to those. I'm like, well, I'll do virtual ones, I guess. So
That's cool.
yeah, so the yurt circles are awesome. I have like a big garden outside, and it's just all woven into my motto of like create a life you don't want to escape, and just really, infusing your life with creativity and passion and all the things that help us feel soulfully alive, community, connection, um, joy, play. A lot of the time, the yurt circles, I'll do like crafting. We've done vision boarding, pressed flowers,
Fun.
sipping with non-alcoholic wine. So
Nice.
they've been really fun. And I love just reminding women, like, I sometimes it takes doing things differently than everyone else to like truly find your sweet spot in life. And that's okay. And as long as you confidently make the decisions that work best for you, like you will be able to shine brightly, even when it's not what everyone else is doing. And I really started the yurt because when I stopped drinking, I found it like very lonely and alienating. And I was like, you know what? I want to start creating community around like alcohol free events that is not
Yeah.
just like heavy personal development, but like lightening the mood around it and being like, all right, we can talk about like emotional awareness and do vision boarding and like laugh
Yeah.
and drink mocktails or paint and drink non-alcoholic wine, and just creating those soulful spaces for women to connect over the real shit in life. Because I think,
Yeah.
a lot of times drinking infused conversation isn't like the most spiritually fulfilling either. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so cool that, you're so smart the way you thought about this, because I do think that, I don't know if you agree on this, but our culture is really so difficult for women the way it's gone, where it's just most women don't feel like they have time for things like pressing flowers because they're working, they're taking care of their kids, all the energy they can muster at the end of the day is like doom scrolling on social media and having a glass of wine. It's like I think and like our nutrition too. It's like women don't really have time to cook healthy and nourishing meals as much. So it's like there's a void in our lives, I think, for the things you mentioned, like social connection. Like how many like women in the busy phase of their lives that truly spend time with their friends, like if they're, in having to work or wanting to work, either way, if they're working and they're raising children and trying to self-care in some way, are they really spending time socially with their friends in a way that like fills,
Yeah.
spiritually like feeds their soul, and like doing creative things like what you described, right? Vision boarding, thinking about goals and spending time on that. Even the time to make a cocktail, it sounds silly, but I'm like, wow, that sounds like
Yeah.
it takes time to find a mocktail recipe, get the ingredients, put it all together. I just feel like I see a lot of women in our clinic that are so drained with like the way our culture kind of like has
Yeah.
gone, that those things have kind of gone by the wayside, and we maybe don't culturally see the value in it.
Which
But
is so,
yeah.
like,
Mhm.
depressing when you think
Yeah.
about just even on a soulful level, we don't see the value in, like, slowing down enough to not be in fight or flight. Like, all of
Yeah.
the good things in life come from rest and digest. Like,
Yeah.
fight or flight is not meant to be the way that we're, like, chronically living our lives, and it's like, guess what goes by the wayside? Well, first of all, digestion, so, I mean,
Yeah.
probably that why half the women have, like, IBS, but also this, imagination, intuition, creativity, a connection to ourselves, a connection to nature. And I just started to be like, am I allowed to swear on here?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Be like, fuck this bullshit. Like, I don't want to subscribe to programming that tells me like I have to live a life where I
Yeah.
run around like a chicken with my head cut off and
Yeah.
everyone in front of me and then feel guilty that I'm not showing up as the best version of myself because I'm not slowing down. It's this whole
Yeah. Too
cycle
much.
of like dysfunction. And
Yeah.
it's just such a rebellious thing to be like, I'm gonna unapologetically like slow down, and I don't want, and it does take like some resisting, I feel like at first, but you get to a space of more flow and ease with it, because you're like, no, no, no. Like we are so programmed to like feel like I spent so much time staying in situations that didn't serve me because I told myself like, well, I can't, like I have to work in this restaurant industry forever because I don't have a choice. Like I think we limit ourselves so much by our inner dialogue around what is and is not possible for ourselves, and a lot of
Yeah.
that is rooted in programming that is like intended to be inherently disempowering, that we just like adopt, and it's like telling us that it's normal to just for moms to just be like off to work the minute they give birth, like bye bye baby, like I'm going back to work, I'm going to be like pumping all day while my kids, like it's just the whole dynamic of what we are told is normal is up for debate. And there's
Right.
no shame around like women adhering to that, but I think a lot of
Yeah.
women like are feeling like something is missing and that they're losing themselves in the process. And so for those women, I would say like this is not mandatory. Like you get a choice in the life you want to create, the pace at which you want to live, and anything that tells you otherwise is like probably benefiting from you being disconnected from yourself. Because a woman who
Yeah.
is connected to herself and knows like I get to choose my reality is so powerful and like dangerous, because she's
Yeah.
not easily manipulated anymore. And
Absolutely.
when you decide to choose your own belief systems, like that's the start of creating whatever you want. Because
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of the ones we have implanted are not the best.
Yeah. It's so true. And yeah, it hopefully that's not offensive to people. I mean, I work full time, and I almost feel like, I thought that as my kids got older that working would make more and more sense, but I actually feel like now I have two in middle school and one in second grade. I feel like it's actually been more of like a curve where like I
Yeah.
stayed home for years when they were real little, and then I've been working full time maybe 6 years, and now I feel like almost I need to work less. Like I just feel like Not
Yeah.
only do I think they need me more now as they're kind of going into like a really critical phase of their life, but I'm realizing more that like maybe what matters and like in the end of your life, like what else do you have if not relationships,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's not about, because I think our culture is like so afraid of like offending people, and like when
Yeah.
it's just like sharing truth based on whoever's perspective it is. And that's why I think it's important to be like, if you feel, even with drinking, like I used to always feel like I had to like have caveats, like if you're happy with your relationship and this, that, and it's like everyone should just feel in alignment with the path they're choosing, whether it's drinking, not drinking, or um, like being a stay-at-home mom. And that's another thing is like, have you noticed how intensely polarized the internet is on every topic?
Yeah.
Dude, if she's happy as like a working
Right.
mom, let her be happy as a working mom. If she's
Exactly.
happy as a stay-at-home homesteading mom, like
Let her do it.
do it. And just it's just about bringing awareness to our choice, like to our ability to create the reality we want. And the fact is that the programming is mostly geared towards like telling women they should like go back to work and do this. So it's just bringing awareness to, if that doesn't feel like right for you, and many of us are feeling like overwhelmed and stressed out, like just shining the light on like what are our collective belief systems as a society, and how can we like create space for people to take different paths that feel healthier or better to them personally.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe out on the topic of alcohol, I almost feel like, you're saying, okay, well, you should do the path that feels right for you, but it's almost even hard to know what feels right because we're so conditioned
Yeah.
to take a certain path, and maybe we even have our identity in some ways
Oh yeah.
formed around that. Like in me, that's the case. I like have this identity around having my professional life, and it's almost hard to know if I'm really happy about it or not. But maybe alcohol is almost like a sign.
Yeah.
Like if you like how's it going for you with what you're doing? Well, if you feel like you need to have a glass of wine every night, no shame in that. But is that in some way filling up a hole in your heart that was
Yeah.
meant to be filled by something else?
Exactly. Just an opportunity to get curious and like
Yeah.
explore. And if you feel called to, and like I think a lot of times, like when we do feel triggered around like different conversations and stuff, it's like always an opportunity for reflection. And I think it's just really nice to see, hopefully, like the trajectory of our society is like, I do feel like there's something about astrology and like the breaking out of old paradigms. And I just think as we move forward, people are going to be exploring more nuance and getting sick of labels, and just like this is the way you should do things, and kind of breaking into their own individualized paths a little more. And that's what I love to see. Like I am just, whether people are choosing whatever they're doing, like I'm all about you choosing your life and your authenticity. And like you can tell when someone's in their authenticity, whether they're like drinking, not drinking, working, not working, their personality. Maybe it doesn't like even people who I'm like, I probably don't resonate that much with you, but I just can tell you're like authentically yourself, like right
Right.
on, you know
I totally know what you mean. Yeah. Are
like
they Yeah, that's a perfect way of saying that. And if not, I like how your approach is to explore the reasons why rather than just, it's the alcohol thing. It reminds me in a lot of ways of nutrition. It's like if you just simply say, "Oh, you shouldn't eat sugar" or whatever,
yeah,
someone who's already eating a lot of sugar, you haven't really answered the question of like why are
yeah,
they eating a lot of sugar and what would they eat instead and what are the drivers for them and what are
yeah,
their goals. And so I like that. I like how you've shared that you do that, that it's more about looking at the whole person,
mm-hmm,
um,
yeah.
and maybe looking at alcohol as a sign of some misalignment for them.
Right. And, most people by the time they like come to me, they know that it's not feeling aligned with their life, and they want to explore that with support and like come out the other side and start creating something new for themselves and a different trajectory. And so the majority of people like I work with are definitely in the gray. They're not like, everything's wonderful, I love my life, and I'm just
Yeah.
drinking typically. And so yeah, and I think when alcohol's on your radar already, and you kind of like, if it's even there in the psyche of like, oh, this, when it's
This
there
might not be great.
in a
Yeah.
way, like otherwise you just wouldn't have it on your radar or think about it. And so that's what I always tell people when I'm like, oh, it's probably just a little sober curiosity in there.
Yeah. What are some of the things that are there any patterns you see around like what surprises people when they work with you of like, they think that it's simply, for some reason I feel compelled to have a bottle of wine every night and I don't know why. And then what are some of the things they tend to like discover with you?
Um, Honestly, I think, one of the biggest things is slowly like, oh, I actually didn't even want to drink like socially, and the things that they notice. I think I would say some of the positive benefits are some of the things that surprise them the most, particularly
Mm,
that, it can be really fun to just be present and socialize. I think a lot of people are really surprised by how little other people care about what they're drinking, like, oh, I was so worried that everyone was going to give me a hard time or something like that. And while there is, occasional drink pushers or people who are weird about it, like generally speaking, especially with more and more
yeah.
people choosing not to drink, it's just like not as much of a thing. And I
Yeah.
think people build it up a lot in their head when it's like no one cares what you're doing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Your spouse, even if you just try to drink at home in the evening, like maybe they've been kind of secretly wanting to drink less too. They might be excited.
Right. I think that's another thing a lot of people are surprised by is how many people start talking. And that surprised me when I stopped drinking, and kind of was what shaped like my business going in this direction, was because so many people started reaching out to me and saying like, I didn't have a drinking problem either, but like I just stopped drinking, last year, or like I've been thinking about drinking less too, or my whole like new group of girlfriends that like
Yeah.
am now super close with was a byproduct of like me sharing about my sober curiosity and my experience not drinking, and them reaching out to me and being like, I don't drink anymore either,
I'm the
girls that I used
same.
to party
It's
with and stuff. So
yeah. You think they want to be your friend anymore, and then it turns out that more they're like inspired to think about it
yeah,
themselves. And yeah, it's good.
yeah, and more people are curious than not. And even when I was still drinking, I remember a few friends that stopped drinking before me, and I was really curious. I remember even being drunk at a wedding, talking to them like, well, what made you stop drinking, and
Yeah.
how did you do that, and what about, do you ever want to drink? And just, in my early days of like, I think I was always a little sober curious in there, but just had a lot of limiting beliefs around it. I thought like it wouldn't be realistic, or
Yeah.
I, I didn't have a problem need to not drink. And you just don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
so you have to like give yourself the opportunity to like develop new belief systems. And I just could never have guessed that those new belief systems would be like, I never want to drink again. Like, why would I do that? My life is so much better without it. Or like, I feel like not drinking socially is a superpower now because I'm so connected and I am so aware of everything that's going on. And I feel like I'm a psychic at like social situations, just like, oh,
Yeah.
you
You're
like,
like, it's like I'm thinking better than everyone here.
yeah, just like you're just on like a different level, like watching everything. And it's really kind of like entertaining once you get past like the
Yeah.
discomfort of it. And so that to me was really surprising, the evolution of my own thoughts, and watching
Mm,
clients, be resistant initially, like, oh, just having their low points of like, this like
mm,
is really hard and this was really sucks. And I'm just like, just wait for it. Like, you're going to be blown away by how much differently you think about yourself, other
yeah.
people, your life, alcohol, like a year from now. So,
Yeah, it is so empowering, and it is like a superpower, and I can see how you see people have so many indirect and unexpected benefits because it's like you have maybe even more confidence in yourself, and your neurotransmitters in your brain are different when you
Mhm.
don't drink. So you literally have a superpower, I think, in the way your
Yeah.
brain is functioning.
Yeah, the presence thing, and then that's not even getting into like manifestation and like really connecting to the frequency of like the life you want, and how you are so much more available for synchronicities and opportunity when you're present all the time and you're in
Yeah,
good energy. You're not in like low vibrational energy of like, oh, I kind of feel like not that
yeah,
great from yesterday, or like, or from, a couple glasses of wine or whatever. It's like that shift in frequency is like, that's like the higher level stuff. Like, I love talking with clients about once we get past like, okay, socializing without alcohol and like cravings, is like, but wait till you start picking up on like the ways in which you can manipulate the life
yeah,
reality you're creating and manifesting by the frequency you're operating at and the beliefs you hold. And it's all really empowering to evolve to
yeah,
that state with it.
yeah. This was so powerful, and I don't know. I
Oh,
just really love that. We could talk about the deeper things on this. Of if you want to talk about alcohol, but really, it's like, should we think about the way that the things that women have been told, the way that our culture is set up, the way that women are kind of told they should live their lives versus what maybe is the best for us and for our families. And could that be part of really
yeah.
what's the underlying thing here with drinking and women? And I get it. Well, of course, there's women who are like single parents, and like obviously they have to work, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of women who even have a spouse with income and they still have to work. And so I get that it's not like, oh, we just all have rich husbands and we just stay home. it's
Oh, yeah.
it's totally not like that.
Yeah.
But really looking at our lives of like, what do we spend our time on? What do we prioritize? What can we
Yeah.
do to try
And
to slow the heck down?
I love that. And I think that's like exactly it for me, is like, it's really like the alcohol is the gateway, but it opens up this lens and portal for us to examine our lives on a deeper level, what we've been told to accept, what we've been told that like we should want, and
Yeah,
how we've been
right.
told is a baseline of existence, which is for most people like being highly stressed out all the time. And and for me, I will just give context to, because I think it's helpful to like share that my husband and I, like, we have no family support where we live, so we have a
Yeah.
toddler. And I was doing like a full-time health coaching job when I had my son Arthur. And for me, I just like, we are very like, he's a carpenter and we don't
Aw.
have any secret stashes of money or anything. And
Yeah.
so it's like he works, full time and helps, but I do as much as I can financially through my work. But like when I did decide to leave my job, I weighed what I valued, and I was like, okay, like I can either stay at this health coaching job, try to cram my business on at the side, try to balance healthcare, like, or childcare. And it just didn't make sense for me to like
Yeah.
spend probably the majority of my salary in childcare if I could step away from that job, focus more on my business, and be present with Arthur. And although I definitely didn't have enough like business with my coaching at that point for it to be like significant, like I knew I was going to need to make more money than I was going to be able to
It was a
when
leap of faith.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so but I was just like, I know that's not the pace I want to live. I don't want to be living where I'm like working both ends of the spectrum and,
Yeah.
working my business, the full-time job, and then trying to
Too
like
much.
be a mom. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but like, I'm quitting my job. I'm focusing on my business. And I took a month off social media. And that's when I got the idea for the yurt. And then I got the idea to start doing like cut flowers. So I have like a cut flower cart where I put flowers out in my business cards for the yurt. And so it's just,
So
I think
cool.
people are afraid to prioritize what they really want, but you do get and formulate creative solutions when you put yourself in a position to do so by placing your values at the forefront as opposed to like your programming or
Yes.
everyone else is doing or your fear
Right.
about it not working out. And so I think not that, everyone should quit their job or whatever. I'm just saying like with some applied awareness, creativity, like you really can do whatever you want to do. And creative solutions are possible.
Oh my gosh, Katie, that's so beautiful. And you are such a light. And I want to thank you for everything you're doing in the world. And I'm sure that people would really want to connect with you and follow you and connect with you potentially about your services. So maybe you can share a little bit about how people can find you.
Yes. So on Instagram, I am at mindful.constitution. So I'm over there. My bio says I help deep feelers stop dimming their light with alcohol and create a life that ignites their soul. I share a lot about, my yurt, holistic health, sober curiosity is a heavy focus. But there's also just a lot about like empowering, mental health. I talk a lot about like relationships and not dimming yourself down and finding aligned community and sisterhood. And then I have a podcast, Mindful Constitution podcast on Spotify and YouTube, which is free. And then, my website is mindfulconstitution.com, and I have my offerings. I have a free 30-page guide that's called Sober Curiosity for Sensitive Souls, and it's all about how we stop dimming our light with alcohol and reconnect to sensitivity and vulnerability and empathy as the gift it is, and just creating a softer life that allows that gift to shine. I think the world really needs, more sensitive people in their power. And so, that's all the places you can find me.
Thanks, Katie. We'll link everything in the show notes. I love your free handout, by the way. It's incredible. 10 out of 10 recommend. Everybody go grab it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Katie. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.